Johnny Miller is our correspondent in the eastern Donbass region and joins us now. Johnny, by the way, a very moving report from you just recently about the funeral of a child that was killed by Ukrainian shelling. Really gives you an idea about the suffering of civilians, and on both sides. Just looking at the NATO's Madrid summit declaration, which was issued by NATO members who participated in Spain, not a single sentence about peace talks, a road path to peace, any kind of initiative towards peace. Absolutely nothing whatsoever. It does sound like NATO is going to try and prolong the fighting.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just civilians, actually. It's the soldiers, particularly Ukrainian soldiers. I don't think NATO has any regard whatsoever about the Ukrainian soldiers dying in this war. They are completely outmatched by the Russian army. I have no doubt, for example, if it was a British army there who was outmatched on the battlefield, NATO would withdraw that army. But they're not doing that for NATO, for Ukraine. They're pushing the Ukrainians to continue to fight. And many analysts have said some time ago, and increasingly saying now, that Ukraine can't win this war. Russia is systematically destroying the Ukrainian army. And more Ukrainians are being called up to fight. So it's civilians who are dying, Ukrainian soldiers particularly are dying. Of course, we don't know the Russian figures, but they are dying as well. And it seems, as you rightly say, that NATO is just pushing for continued war. The most recent statement coming out of America, there's a different statement almost every day, but the most recent statement is that they think that Russia is trying to take over most of Ukraine. And if that's their policy, then that means their policy is to continue the fight, because Russia would be very open to negotiating a peaceful end to this conflict based around giving up some territory in the south and in the east. And for the United States to suggest that Russia wants to take the whole of Ukraine or most of Ukraine, they're essentially saying that we want Ukraine to continue to fight. And of course, NATO doesn't really have the interests of Ukrainian soldiers or the well-being of Ukrainian cities at heart. It's not going to affect their politicians at the ballot box. They can continue to fight Russia in the forlorn hope of damaging Russian power, of trying to damage the Russian army by sending Ukrainians to fight and die for that aim. So you rightly say there doesn't seem to be much people pushing for negotiating for peace. The UN Secretary General he's incredibly concerned about rising food prices, particularly in the developing world. Increasingly, I think you will see civilians, people in the West, start to push for peace, because they're getting hit in their wallets as well by the sanctions, etc. And if you ask most people here in Ukraine, I'm sure in the west of Ukraine as well, they will want peaceful negotiations to start an end to this war. But it's NATO in particular, and Russia as well. They have their aims. They did invade the country, of course. They have their aims. But NATO as well simply doesn't seem to be interested in peace at all, when there is paths for peace to be had.
Right, and then just finally, Johnny, so in the absence of any attempts by NATO to press for a peace deal, and NATO is playing a very direct and strong role in this conflict. In the absence of any peace deal, and until we reach that stage of peace talks, hopefully soon, you're there on the ground in Donetsk. What's the latest developments on the ground there?
Well, most of the fighting's happening in the north around Lysychansk. It looks like the Russians will take that. It's only a matter of time. It looks like they'll take it quicker than expected because of the Ukrainian withdrawals. Interestingly, it's been quiet here in Donetsk. Ever since I arrived, Ukraine has been shelling Donetsk. The last couple of weeks, they're shelling the center. That's stopped in the last few days. And I can tell you, it's been terrifying in Donetsk. Every time I just go out to the shops or go for a coffee, I'm having to constantly worry about the incoming. And that's what people have been living through here in Donetsk. But that's stopped, we think, because Russia has hit the artillery positions on the outskirts of this city. But being here now in Donetsk gives you a feeling of what peace is like, and people not having to worry about getting killed as they're walking down the street. So Russia's certainly making huge advances through the Donbass, even though many analysts are saying that it's just a matter of time until Russia win this war, at least win the Battle of Donbass. Still, the Ukrainians are putting up a fierce resistance, and it looks like the fighting and the killing of soldiers and civilians will carry on for many more months in essentially a conflict here in the Donbass. It's effectively already been decided. Many analysts saying that Russia just can't can't lose the battle for Donbass, but many more people are going to die before that realization sets in Ukraine and NATO.